Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Richard Applin in Bullpen Science, and today we have two smiling faces with us. We have Teresa. Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning.
And good morning, Linda.
Hello.
All right, you guys, we're going to be talking about healthcare today, and we're going to also be adding in an article that we had I believe it was last week.
Yes, it was last week.
Mm-hmm.
And this article was just on my mind continuously, and I was sitting there last night and I was thinking about what we're going to be talking about today, and it hit me. I had a conversation with a patient yesterday, and it was about healthcare, and it was about understanding the definition of healthcare. See, we have this big industry that's out there, and they call it healthcare, but it's gotten to the point that we tend to believe that technology is healthcare, that crisis management is healthcare, that going to the doctor when you have a pain is healthcare, and it's not. Now, that doesn't mean it's not good. All right, it's necessary, but it's not healthcare.
Okay.
And so really, it's almost like we need to redefine this industry to the umbrella, which is healthcare, and then you have different aspects of healthcare. Like you have true health and wellness, you have acute care, you have emergency care, or urgent care. And like for instance, if you're running a really, really high fever, then you may want to go to an emergency care facility or an urgent care.
Right.
If you fall and cut your leg on a piece of glass and you're bleeding, you might want to use urgent care or emergency care.
Right.
But the problem in the industry is that the attitudes in that field, the attitude is that, well, that's really healthcare, and so you need to go all the time. It's almost like, well, if you take a pill because you have this condition, then that's just part of healthcare. And so we've had to change this. And you guys listening out there, you really need to pay attention to this, because this is not only something that can change your overall health and wellness, but it can change the attitudes of the next generation. That's the thing that we say here. Our whole purpose here is to change the generational cycle of sickness.
Yeah.
And it's the way you think.
So just listening to what you said, basically our healthcare as we know it is reactive.
Absolutely.
And not proactive.
Right. Now, do you need reactive intervention? Absolutely.
Yes.
Do you need proactive intervention?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
you
But
do.
the problem is that we've created this culture think that reactive is proactive, and it's not.
Right. The absence of proactive is what will bring you to the reactive.
Absolutely.
If you don't handle your business.
And as a result, more and more people are thinking that reactive is proactive. And what's happened is that we've compromised and we've actually lowered the bar.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so what we've done is we've actually redefined what normal is.
Wow.
All right, how many times, and you guys I know I've experienced it firsthand, somebody says, well, how many medications do you take? And I go, none. And they said, well, that's not normal.
It's
Yeah.
so true.
But it is true.
I've
Yeah.
gotten the same
Yeah.
response. Yeah.
So we've redefined normal because we don't understand what healthcare is.
Right.
And this article that we had last week on probiotics is the perfect example.
Yeah.
It is.
That
This-
was an
I feel like I've
eye-opener.
discovered a gold mine.
Well, the article says probiotics found to reverse depression. Wow.
Yeah,
just
that's
odd.
Now,
powerful.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that you can change the gut structure, you can change the microbiota in your gut, and you can get rid of a condition?
That's pretty amazing. Now, I've heard you say that, about 70% of our immune system lives in the gut.
Yeah,
Makes
absolutely.
sense.
But it
Yeah.
does absolutely make sense.
Yeah.
But here's the reason why it works. Because what they're talking about here is changing the process.
Right.
All right, the condition is the result of the process. How many conditions out there that people suffer from on a day in, day out basis are truly just the result of a process? Well,
all
the
of
government
them?
says 90%. I would dare say that it's 100%.
I would too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if we have an industry that promotes management of the condition, then we're degrading what normal is.
Right.
And then, so as a result, instead of changing healthcare or the attitudes or understandings, definitions of healthcare, we just redefine what normal is. So it's normal to take a lot of drugs. It's normal to have a lot of surgeries. Yeah. No, it's not. So let's talk about this article. This thing was incredible.
Yeah, it
so
was.
What we know from the article is that more and more people suffer from inappropriate or inadequate bacteria in their gut.
Yeah.
And as a result, these conditions manifest. Now, here's how this thing works. And it really, it's beautiful when you think about it. We have, as we work, as we function as a human being, we actually produce waste products. Everything that you do winds up producing waste products. And so we have this bacteria in our gut that its sole purpose is to lower the toxin levels, and they call it a blood metabolite, which is just a waste product. And so it keeps this waste product down, all right? Because if the waste product goes up and hits a certain level, then it triggers depression.
Wow.
That's
and so
amazing.
giving these people just probiotics actually lowered the depression.
That blows my mind.
I know. It's like
That
discovering
just
a
blows
gold
my
mine here. I mean,
I guess that's true. It is a gold mine.
Yeah.
It really is. But it is so simple.
it is.
You don't have to have a lot of technology to figure this one out.
And you don't have to take drugs that do terrible things to you.
Right. Well, let's look at it. So a person out there, they live a very stressful life. They have no recovery strategies simply because no one's ever taught them that you need to have recovery strategies. And so they just push. All right. They don't eat right. Okay.
Correct.
Because when you get stressed, what do you crave?
Sugar.
Why? Because that's what your body needs to fuel the defense system. And so you crave sugars and what is it? Simple carbohydrates.
Yeah, carbs.
All right? So you do that long enough, and then you wind up with all these blood metabolites increasing, and they take a while, and they increase to a certain level, and then it triggers depression. And so you go to the doctor, all right, who's in the healthcare arena, and you tell him of your symptoms, and then instead of trying to figure out what's really going on, well, they say, what we need to do is intervene on your symptoms, so we're going to give you an antidepressant. Well, it may work for a short period of time, but the problem is that you never changed the process.
Right.
And so after a while, that medication that is controlling the consequence of that process really stops working. And so you wind up taking more. You go back to the doctor and you say, well, this medication that you gave me worked for a little while, but now it doesn't work. Well, he says, well, what you need is another one. And how many drug ads do we see on the television that says, if this drug doesn't work, you may need this other one. And so we recommend you take two. It's absolutely insane. And it really goes back to defining what healthcare is.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like it's like doctors are giving you healthcare if they help you to prevent death.
Right.
It's like the goal is don't die.
Well, and that brings up something.
Or mask the symptom, make it go away.
Well, yeah,
make
and
the symptom go away.
but don't die. Like,
Don't die.
Yeah, because and then we look at it as success because we didn't die.
Right.
Forget about this. This pill has the potential to bring slow death. Forget about that part. But I'm just saying, we look at doctors as heroes if we don't die.
Right.
And so covering up those symptoms allow me to feel good while I'm slowly not dying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm just thinking about that. I'm like, that's kind of crazy because that just makes me a survivor. I don't want to be a survivor. I don't believe we were created
that's
to
good, yeah.
just survive. You cannot thrive
Right.
if you, man.
Yeah.
So thriving is not a product of today's healthcare
Absolutely not.
because today's healthcare isn't healthcare.
No.
Today's healthcare is dominated by technology, all right? And it's dominated by medication, which is nothing more than the management of the disease process. And, we have preventative care. What are they preventing? Death. All right.
Well,
And
yes.
that's not thriving, is it?
No.
That's just existing. So we need to understand healthcare is an umbrella. Under healthcare, there are different components. There's urgent care, emergency care. All right. There is preventative care, but there's also health and wellness care. And that's exactly what we do. You know, I heard a doctor friend of mine say this. I was watching a video that he had made, and I thought it was quite insightful. He said, you know, today's health care is like buying an iPhone and only using the calculator.
Oh, well.
It's full of potential, but all you use is the calculator. And if you have the media recommending and touting the importance of the calculator and how great the calculator is, people miss out.
And are satisfied with.
And people become satisfied with the fact that they carry this thing around and it's just a really fancy calculator.
Wow.
And they totally miss out on the benefits of what they have. And we see that firsthand right here in the office. We have a whole group of what I call health warriors, health and wellness warriors, and they get it.
Yeah.
And they come in on a regular basis and they get adjusted and they understand the research that supports what they're doing. And as a result, they don't get sick. Their kids, they go into the daycare centers and they don't get sick. And people ask them, well, what's going on? And they say, well, I go to the chiropractor. And then the first thing the person thinks of, well, I didn't know you had a back problem.
Right.
It's not about back problems. All right. Again, treating back problems is like using the calculator on an iPhone, all right, without using all the other components.
It works.
It absolutely
does
works.
It works. But there's so much more.
There is so much more. You know, you were bringing up something on this article. I want you to talk about that.
Yes, I was kind of blown away by this because it's talking about how these probiotics, can keep you from being depressed, balancing the gut system and everything. But this other study that was published in a medical journal called Psychopharmacology, it revealed that people who took prebiotics, those are compounds that promote probiotic growth, paid less attention to negative information and more focus on positive information during a computer test compared with those who took a placebo. And I was just blown away by that. I mean, it even affects your focus, your mental attitude.
Right.
Wow.
Now, if you think about why, because, that's our big question, why? Somebody comes in, they say, well, I have this, and I say, why? And then we
Always.
get to the issue, all right, which is the process that underlies the condition. So in this very same thing, the prebiotic is necessary so the bacteria can grow. They're compounds that the microbiota need to flourish. Okay?
Yes.
So just having the microbiota in your gut is not enough. It needs to thrive. The more it thrives, the more you thrive. And what it does for you is it allows your braking mechanism, which is the parasympathetic, and we call it the recovery system, activate. And that's the reason why that very last piece down there where it talks about cortisol.
Oh,
We all
yes,
know
and the
cortisol is a
cortisol.
stress hormone. So when you are under a high level of stress, your body releases cortisol, all right, in response to that. So when these people take the prebiotics, what they found was that what?
They found that the participants in the prebiotics group had lower cortisol levels in their saliva than those in the placebo group.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
High cortisol levels are known to induce stress. So it's like this vicious cycle.
Right.
You produce the cortisol because you're stressed, and then it induces more stress.
Absolutely.
Wow.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So all you guys listening out there, this is what I want you to take from this. Healthcare today is not healthcare. That doesn't mean that the components of healthcare are not necessary. But it also doesn't mean that urgent care, crisis management, or the management of a disease is healthcare.
Yeah.
It's not.
Right.
All right. So that's the first thing I want you to get. The next thing I want you to get is take care of the bacteria in your gut. Take care. Gut health is critical to overall health.
Right. It is.
And if you want to talk more about the right kind of probiotic and prebiotic to take, then you need to come in and talk to us because we have it here. I just smiled when I read the article because a few years ago, I decided this is the correct one to use. And then when I read the article, it said, this is the correct one to use.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
All probiotics are not created equal.
Exactly. All probiotics are not the same. So for everyone out there, thank you, Glenda. Thank you, Teresa, for participating today. I've very much enjoyed talking with you guys, and I look forward to our next episode on Bullpen Science. This is Dr. Richard Applin, and we'll see you in the field.
You've been listening to Bullpen Science with Dr. Richard Applin. To learn more about real health solutions to your real health problems, call us at 256-203-9433 or visit us online at envisionchiropractic.com today.